Hey folks, this is John Miller, Executive Editor with WB News. We would like to welcome you to Ask the Experts, featuring John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwb.com. And now live from the studios of the Exponent Telegram in Clarksburg, West Virginia, let's Ask the Expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert with Beacon Wealth Management's John Halterman. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thank you very much.
Well, you know, in the past, we've talked about the need to prepare for tax season, but I have a feeling that, you know, the ho, ho, ho and the Happy New Year kind of got in the way of most people talking and heeding that advice. You know, is there anything that can be done now to lessen that 2024 tax impact?
There is and there isn't. Okay, so from a 401k standpoint, things that come out of your payroll has to be in by the end of the year. But IRA contributions, Roth IRA contributions, you have actually up to April 15th to make those. And so the one thing I tell people is if you don't think you've saved enough money or you're looking to get that immediate tax deduction, you can make a contribution for this tax year in 2025. You just definitely have to get it by April 15th, and you have to state that that contribution is for 2024. Because if you send money into an IRA or Roth IRA, they always apply it to the time period they get it unless you specify that it was for the previous year.
You know, yeah, anything else that can be done, or is that pretty much it?
You know
now?
what? I mean, the IRS is flexible on that part, but they're not really flexible on company parts. You know, like business owners, 401ks, they don't really have that. I mean, the cutoff is year end for that type of stuff. And so now what you should be doing is you should be thinking about next year. Because, you know, like I had a person the other day say to me, they said, hey, look, I made $500,000 more than what I did last year. What can I do this year? Well, the IRS knows that. I mean, they know that when you make that kind of money, you want to do something. So they don't let you go backdate it. You know, they don't allow that. So what, like I always tell them is that, you know, the reality of it is we should start in the beginning of the year thinking about, okay, what was last year making? And then where do we project this year? And then about halfway through, because if we got 6 months, we definitely can plan. But, you know, we're in the 11th and a half hour at this point. And so the 11th and a half hour, the IRS is just not very flexible on companies and things like that.
Well, you know, we've talked about the 11th and a half hour and, you know, people making more than what they anticipated. You know, you're having a good year or whatever. That's when they need to be talking to you about, okay, what can I do? I'm up $1 million in revenue this year. What can I do to plan out so that impact isn't as great?
Yeah. Now, for that type of person, there's lots of things you can do because, you know, you might have to look at your business structure. So if you're a business owner, you got to look at what type of entity are you, because the type of entity is going to impact your taxes. You might have to look at different types of trust, business type trust. You might have to look at all kinds of things. And those things are a big, big deal. And so if you made a lot of money last year and you're worried that in 2025 you're going to make a lot of money again, then definitely don't put it off to the end of the year because, you know, like I said, the IRS just not flexible on that type of stuff. Now, the one thing I will tell someone, you know, because I'm thinking about payroll and I'm thinking about my own payroll at my office, we have one payroll left. And so what I told all my employees is that if you want to get a deduction and you want us to take your entire paycheck and put it away into your retirement, you do have that one final option to do that, and that will make a contribution into your retirement plan. But you just got to make sure it gets in for 2024 in order to happen.
So the key really, though, is sitting down with someone like yourself and talking about these things as they are occurring or soon enough that it can make an impact.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I tell everyone, beginning of the year, okay, if you have things on your mind, do it now, okay? Let's do an assessment. You know, let's sit down and figure out, okay, is my investments in the right place for my age, my time horizons, my risk, and what I'm wanting to accomplish? Because, you know, people get really confused and they think, oh, I used to do this for the last 20 years. irrelevant. I always tell people what you did 20 years ago is not what you're going to need to do if you're going to be changing your circumstance. When I say changing, meaning if you've been in the accumulation stage and now all of a sudden you're thinking about retiring, well, the game changed completely. It's the difference between hiking up the mountain versus hiking off the mountain. You can't use the same techniques to have the same level of success. And then taxes. If you're paying too much taxes, whether it be in your income, whether it be in your investments, or whether you're even concerned about you're building a bigger and bigger IRA, what impact does that have on your children? Well, you got to be thinking, okay, what can I do now? And then also, just with simple things like, you wouldn't believe how many people, John, are not covered for incapacitation. I asked him, I said, hey, look, if you and your wife were driving home and you got into a car accident, where would you stand? Could the other person act upon the other person's behalf if needed? And 80% of the people I talk to don't have any of that. And that's really not that hard to take care of. And so you got to just ask yourself just a series of questions. And if any of those questions say, you know what, I don't know the answer, or I'm not 100% sure, then let's talk. Because that's the way to solve it. It's no different going to the doctor. You can't solve your health issues by staying at home. You got to go to the doctor, you got to get an assessment, and you got to get a prescription. Same thing with financial stuff.
Does that mean we have to start calling you Dr. Halterman? John, you've always boiled things down and come across very well. I always like to ask you these questions because you do it so well. But so tell me 5 things we need to be doing in 2025 to be better prepared for retirement.
Okay. Well, a little bit of it I just talked about. Okay. The very first thing is you got to know, what your numbers are. When I say numbers, meaning like if you're going to retire, come up with the number, what age? Am I going to retire at 65? Or is it going to be 67? Whatever it may be. The second thing is you got to know what income you need. Because I always tell people is you got to know how much you're living off of. So as a simple example, if you're living off of $5,000 a month today, well, you got to ask yourself, do you need that $5,000 when you retire? For most people, that answer is yes, or even potentially a little bit more. Because the one thing I always say, the younger you are, the more you want to spend money. And so when you were working, you didn't have time on your hands. But now you got time on your hands. So now you want to spend a little bit more, enjoy things, go to those national parks, go those golfing trips, whatever it may be. And so whatever it is, you got to come up with that number. Then the third thing is you got to figure out, okay, well, where's my sources to get this money? Do I have fixed incomes like pension, Social Security? How much is my investments? And how do I turn my investments, into an actual paycheck? Because that's a big deal because people don't have a clue. They say, well, you know what? I got $1 million. What does that mean in terms of income? Because it doesn't mean you could take $100,000 out a year, because if you took $100,000 a year, you would run out of money. Then the next things you got to be thinking about is, okay, are my taxes in order? Is my family circumstances in order, meaning that if I die, became disabled, incapacitated, or even potentially going to a nursing home. And then the last thing is you got to be thinking about your legacy. When you're gone, have you planned for your death? Have you planned for probate? Have you planned to protect your family? Like as an example, I have 3 small children. And so I have a 17, 15, and 12-year-old. Well, they can't handle money. So if my wife and I were killed in an accident, what we got to be thinking is, how would we want that to be structured for them? And so whether it's your own children, your grandchildren, or even your adult children, because I got to tell you, a lot of adults can't handle money. And so you got to be thinking, should I have a trust? And so that's a checklist of things that I think that people should be going through and figuring out right now, am I prepared? Am I ready for those situations?
John, you always do a great job of wrapping that up. Any closing comment?
That is it. That's a lot in itself, John, so I don't want to overwhelm anybody.
Well, again, thank you for joining us on Ask the Expert with John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. Until the next time.